record. Okay, we're recording now. Everyone can see my screen. We're good. Cool. We're doing bouncing ball stuff today and a very, very, very abbreviated version of the 12 animation principles. So I'm going to go over these super quickly. If I could get a raise of virtual hands, how many of you guys have already like are aware of what these are? And or have animated a bouncing ball. Can I get a raise of Zoom hands? Okay, one person. That's that's great. Awesome. So
Um,
did you know
so you know,
there's a lot of
there's
these?
a lot of these. Cool.
Um, so I can't go into these into huge detail. But some of the more obvious ones that you can sort of tell from the GIF. There's squash and stretch, slow in, slow out, arcs. But then you'll also notice that there are some um maybe harder to pinpoint principles like appeal or staging. Like I don't know what you could possibly glean from the little expression lines on the staging one. Or things like exaggeration. Those are kind of harder um to like visually pinpoint. So let's talk about those more uh little bit. So, I like to think of the 12 principles in two distinct groups. I will generally organize it so that it's like, on the right-hand side, you have techniques that are const are these are things that you constantly incorporate throughout your animation, and so the planning with your animation is more rigid with these. Um, these are like visual indicators of how you can um that your work has life. These are ways that you can make motion appear natural, um, and stuff like that. These are the principles on the right. And then on the left, you have the more storytelling oriented and abstract principles. These are generally a combination of everything that's on the right. So because these are more abstract, these can um, have a tendency to alter or like how you I guess, execute or act on these principles can alter from your initial planning as um, as you go about the process because your story can evolve, um, and so your acting choices can change. So these on the left are the basis for creating your character. So there are for creating a character as much as you can with whatever object or character that you are animating. So you have anticipation, exaggeration, secondary action, staging, and appeal. Um, those are again sort of like correlated with more like acting choices and something that can be observed over like a series of actions within your animation. And then there's the more like condensed ones on the right side. Squash and stretch, timing and spacing arcs, overlap and follow through, easing in and easing out, solid drawing, pose to pose, and straight ahead action. Um, so I will be, um, well, I'll be showing you guys some videos on a handful of these principles, or at least the ones that we're going to be focusing on for the bouncing ball. But if you like, if this really is your very, very first time animating and you haven't like you're unfamiliar with what the bouncing ball is or you're like really intimidated by it, you can we have another exercise for you to do. Um so we'll be going into that next. That exercise is called the magic dot exercise and it'll be more of an um it'll help you get a better sense of what timing and spacing is, which is one of the arguably more important principles for animation because it is, after all, it is time-based media. So this, I should maybe talk about what the bouncing ball is first. Does anyone here not know what the bouncing ball is or haven't seen um examples of the bouncing ball? Sound off in the chat. Or no? That's chill. So the bouncing ball is a pretty common animation exercise and is often something that will be used in animation tests when you're um, looking for jobs. And this goes for both 2D and 3D because it's a really great exercise for demonstrating your understanding of several principles as we will go into shortly, but especially timing and spacing, arcs, and you can the parameters of the exercise can differ based on the type of ball that you have, how much they want you to make it bounce, etc., etc. So, um, it's a common exercise and test that all the animators are doing. So, do not think you're above the test because you're not. Everyone does it. Everyone has to do it. My bouncing balls are not perfect, and neither are anyone else's. But uh, we'll get some more practice with that. So, if you really don't want to do ball, there's just dots. This animator will go into it more, but this is a really helpful exercise for timing it and spacing specifically. Also, y'all can hear this, right? Yay, nay, yay, nay.
I don't think
Yeah,
we can hear it.
yeah, no, if you're showing something, we can't hear it. We can hear you though.
Dang! No! What do you mean you can't hear it? I was hoping you would say yes, so I don't have to figure out why it is you can't hear it. Okay, share computer sound. Stereo question mark. Can you hear it now?
Animation shortcut there is, and the morph.
Yeah.
Let's dig in.
I think.
The first exercise is something I call the magic dot. This is where we create a simple dot and try to make it as interesting as possible using only the power of animation. So I'm going to create a new scene. It's at 12 frames per second, and it's 1920 by 1080. You can do anything you like. I like 12 frames per second for 2D. So the first thing I'm going to do is just draw a dot. And then I'll turn on onion skinning and make a new empty frame. And then my goal now is just to bring as much life to this dot as possible. And the reason I like this exercise is because you don't really need to be able to draw to do it. You can be a stop motion animator, you can be a motion graphics designer, you can be trying things out for the first time, and you can really get a sense of what different spacing does to the speed and the energy of your motion. So if I want to make things move slowly, I make them close together, and if I want to make them fast, I make them further apart. And you can see I'm animating on arcs at the moment, but let's see what happens when I want to animate on a straight line. Whoop. Go nice and quick, and slow down really quickly. And now maybe I want to do some extra fast motion. So I'm going to start using a smear. It's good to know that this isn't stretch or squash. This is a smear because it's using different volumes. So this is a bit more like a motion blur in live action footage. So I'm just going to smear this out, going really quick, and then slow down really quickly. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, as you can see, you can get some really interesting movement very rapidly, and you can just experiment, make mistakes, make new discoveries really quickly. This exercise is fast enough that you can do it multiple times and test out different ideas. So I'm going to make a new layer on top of the old layer and try again. This time I'm going to try to add some depth to the image by making the dot bigger as it gets closer to us and smaller and have tighter spacing as it gets further away. Each of these passes only takes, a few minutes, so I'm able to play around with lots of little ideas. Just as an experiment, I decided to join all of these dots together, and it created quite a cool abstract animation. It moves in a pretty appealing way, and that's because all of the elements have special attention paid to their spacing and arcs. This won't just be the case for abstract animation. Pretty much any object or character you animate will benefit from spacing and timing ideas that you learn with this exercise. Next up, we have...
Yay! So amazing. That is an option for the people who are, I guess, really intimidated by the bouncing ball. I would highly encourage you to try that out. Yeah, so there's that. For the rest of you guys though, if you would do a bouncing ball, I know those of you who are probably taking an animation class right now for like, you know, either 2D or 3D. You may or may not have already done this for class at this point in this semester. So I don't know, divvy it up, make it make it interesting. Has anyone done this already? In like the past week or so? If you have, you have a leg up now. So what we have here on the left is just basically what we're trying to emulate here. Just a simple bounce. You have a ground line. You have a ball that starts screen left and then it rolls out screen right. And then on the right here, we have a basic timing chart. You can do this also, where that ball just goes up and down. And again, you can try out the spacing here. They have the timing chart starting at 5 because they are having it loop over. So they'll copy over frames from the beginning and at the end. So that's why it starts there also. And then you can see that the lines, I can't, sorry. The lines that are tending towards 11 are showing that, they're showing the general timing is a timing chart, so it'll show where frames are situated or where the ball is situated spatially as each frame goes on. So you can see as the ball bounces up, when it reaches the peak of its motion, it's going to have more frames closer to the top and it'll slow down, and then you also have more frames coming down. So yeah, same thing with the dot stuff. Fewer frames are for faster motion and more frames for slower motion. So with the ball, we'll be focusing on timing and spacing, straight ahead and post to pose action, primarily pose to pose, probably, depending on how you do it, and then squash and stretch. So quick videos, I know I don't want to like fatigue you with the videos, but if someone out there doesn't know, I need you guys to know what these are. So we'll have Alan Becker explain these three
This principle
principles.
states that the personality and nature of an animation is greatly affected by the number of frames inserted between each main action. Basically, if you have many drawings that are very close together in between the two main poses, the action will be very slow. If you have very few drawings set far apart from each other, the action will be very fast. Less drawings means fast, more drawings means slow. One simple action can have 10 different meanings depending on how many frames you give it. This man is leaning from one shoulder to the other. With no in-betweens, it looks like his head is being hit by a tremendous force, nearly snapping off his neck. With one in-between, his head has been hit by a rolling pin or some other object. With two in-betweens, he has a muscle twitch. With three in-betweens, he's dodging the rolling pin or the other object. With four, he's saying, "Move it, get out of here." With five, he's more friendly, saying, "Over here, come on, hurry." With six, he sees a good-looking girl or the sports car he always wanted. With 7, he's trying to get a better look at something. With 8, he's searching for the peanut butter on the kitchen shelf. With 9, he is appraising something very thoughtfully. And with 10 in-betweens, he is stretching a sore muscle. The standard frame rate for movies is 24 frames per second. If one drawing is made for each frame, 24 drawings per second, that is called drawing on ones. If one drawing is made for every 2 frames, that's called drawing on twos, and every 3 drawings is threes, and so on. It's actually very common to draw on twos rather than ones for a few reasons. First, it cuts the amount of work in half. Second, it actually makes slow actions look smoother than if you were to draw every frame, because the precision needed to draw in between two very close drawings can lead to the animation looking jittery. Some would also say that drawing on twos is better for fast actions as well, because it gives a sparkle and spirit to the animation that would otherwise be too evenly timed and less lively if it were drawn on ones. But drawing on ones is necessary when there's a very fast action that needs to be read, often a scramble or a flurry of activity. And it's also everyone's choice how many drawings to put in between poses. Some people draw more or less frames depending on how much movement there is, and this can give a very dynamic effect to the animation.
Sick. Okay. Moving on.
This principle states
We have straight ahead and pose to pose. So this will be going into like workflows. There will be different moments where you apply straight ahead within your animation and pose to pose. I personally think that for the bouncing ball, you'll be using pose to pose. or at least that's what I'll attempt to demo, but he'll be going over both of these here.
This video is based on the 12 principles of animation as described by Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston. Alright, so the fourth animation principle is called straight ahead and pose to pose. This term describes two methods used to animate drawings. The first method, straight ahead, is where you draw the first drawing, and then you draw the second drawing, and then the third drawing, and so on. It's basically animating as you go. The second method, pose to pose, is where you draw the beginning and end of each main pose and go back later to fill in the drawings in between. So there are benefits to both methods. Pose to pose is generally better for most actions because it gives you the most control. You have a good idea of what the action is going to look like very early in the process. So instead of worrying if the character is going to end up in the right place, you decide where they end up from the beginning and work backwards. Also, using straight ahead animation can lead to the character changing size or being on a different level from beginning to end. Pose to pose can save you a lot of work. If you were to animate a whole sequence straight ahead and then realize that one pose is off, you would have to change several drawings to fix that one pose. But with pose to pose, you do the main poses to see if it feels right, and you can catch problems early on. Straight ahead animation, on the other hand, is good for animation that is unpredictable. Some examples of this include fire, water particles, clouds of dust, explosions. The reason why straight ahead works well is because there are laws of physics that work at a constant rate, and it's hard to predict how it will work pose to pose. So when animating fire, for example, you just go with the flow based on what you know about fire, and let the fire kind of create itself. If we were to look at the beginning and end, we wouldn't even know how to in between it. However, you can still use pose to pose to make the general shapes, and fill it in between to make it smoother. Another example of unpredictable animation is overlapping action, which will be covered in depth in the next video. Let's say that the character has floppy ears. You could draw the figure with his ears for each pose and just draw the in-betweens accordingly, but another method is to animate the figure using pose to pose without the ears, and then going through and adding the ears using straight ahead. This is good because you can focus on the figure's movements without the distraction of having to do his ears, and you can also focus on the physics of his ears without the distraction of his body's movement. This also applies to hair, tails, and other appendages. When you work pose to pose, there's some vocabulary that goes into it. There are main poses called keys, secondary poses called extremes, and further broken down poses called breakdowns. Make the keys first, perfect them, then decide the farthest the character will go in each direction using extremes, and then decide how you want the extremes to connect using breakdown poses. At this point, you can start in-betweening. Working with this sort of hierarchy will give you the most control, as opposed to doing your pose to pose straight ahead, so to speak. This is like pose to pose within pose to pose, because you are perfecting the poses at each level before moving down to the next level. So that's all I've got for straight ahead and pose to
Amazing.
pose. This video is based on the 12 principles of
Okay.
animation.
And okay, last one. Yeah. Squash and stretch. Show. Oop.
And stretch. This is the principle that animated objects will get longer or flatter to emphasize their speed, momentum, weight, and mass. Here's a bouncing ball that has squash and stretch. And here is one without squash and stretch. See the difference? The amount that an object squashes and stretches says something about its mass. The more squash and stretch, the softer the object. The less squash and stretch, the stiffer the object. This first one looks like a water balloon, and the second one probably would be a bowling ball. Squash and stretch applies to characters too. Look at how this figure is stretching from the speed that he's coming down with, and then he squashes after he lands before settling in his pose. You can also use squash and stretch to exaggerate facial expressions. Let's add some squash and stretch to this face. When his eyes are closed, his face is squashed, and when he opens his eyes in disbelief, his face stretches up and settles back to normal. It's very important to keep the volume of the object consistent. This is what a lot of people mess up with when they're first trying to do squash and stretch. They'll elongate the ball like this and flatten it like this. This is what you should not do. The overall volume of the ball must be the same. So as the ball gets longer, it also gets narrower. When it gets flatter, it also gets wider. The same goes with cubes. If you're going in with one line, the other lines must go in the opposite direction. The cube should start out narrow, get flat, get narrow again, and then rest. In-betweening with cubes is easy because you can measure the line in between the two lines and then connect them to make the cube. If you master squash and stretch with cubes, the next step is to try to do it in 3D. Another important note is that the ball does not have to be stretching the entire time that it's falling. When it's just starting to fall, it should have its normal shape for the most part. And then when it's just about to hit the bottom, that's when it has the most stretch. So do not overdo squash and stretch in this sense.
Yay! Amazing. There's a good point that you mentioned in there that I kind of forgot. Well, I'll remember it later. Cool. Do we have any questions on those? Okay, so before I get into the demo, I just want to leave you guys off with these resources. I would highly encourage you guys to watch the rest of those videos on the principles. It's not that long, 24 minutes. And then to also explore some of the other exercises in that one video by Alex Gregg. They're really great. And they're fun to practice even if you're not specializing in 2D. I think it's important for people to I think it's important for everybody to have a good understanding of solid drawing. And doing animation in any capacity will help you there. There's also these pages of the Animator Survivor Kit that are pretty relevant to what we're doing. And Richard Williams goes into really great detail on how to do bouncing ball stuff in there. So if you want to read those 4 pages, you can read those 4 pages. All right. So now, we'll go to demo time. Okay, stop share. Cool, 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 cool. Now is the time for you guys to open your software. Okay, I'm gonna ask again, is anyone using Blender? Because if not, I'll just kind of like talk through the file that I have currently, and then I might try to do an example with the magic dot instead because I had this prepared already. You're gonna use Blender, Kaylee? Okay, all I needed was one.
Hold on. You should probably ask if they want to use Blender but don't have it set up just yet.
Oh, wait, do you have it ready, Kaylee?
Yeah, I have Blender on my desktop. I just have never used it like in
Oh,
2D, like it's always like, oh, a new 3D project.
right.
So
Okay, well, let me know if you have issues firing it up. When it first starts out, you'll have an option to create a certain type of file, or it'll all be the same file, but they'll have you have different options for starting. You should pick 2D animation and then it'll bring you to this window with a 2D animation tab in the top left. So let me know if you see that. Is everyone else ready to go with a 1920 1080 composition maybe? Cool. Awesome. So, for my bouncing ball, I'll let you guys see what it looks like really fast. Nothing crazy or life-changing, but I'll play it. Whoa! Yo, that's crazy. One more time. Wow. So that's what we're going to do. I'll let you guys. So you can start off by creating your ground line, and then doing your ball at the top, like the upper third of your composition. And then from there, where I would suggest you start is establishing where you think the ball is going to hit the ground. So, for me, um, the ball does its first full bounce after like 14 frames. The timing of yours doesn't have to be like obviously match mine, we could be animating totally different balls. That's not up to me. So, you can figure out a general time for each ball to bounce. Um, I have my contact poses at 10, 28 for some reason, 28, 40, 50, and then it rolls off. Those are mine. I didn't initially plan out those frame numbers. What I did when I was starting was I put contact poses at even numbers, like 10, 20, 30, 40, knowing that I would move them later. Because here's the thing with projectile motion. Or well, when things bounce and they lose energy over time, you'll lose energy with every bounce. So the timing between each contact pose is going to also be shorter and shorter. So you'll notice that the space between the ball being mid-air to 10, doing a full bounce, and hitting at 26, the difference between 40 and 26, like that window is getting shorter and shorter between each bounce. And then also the amount of squash and stretch that's happening for each arc or for each bounce is lesser and lesser. So you'll see that the ball maintains its shape by the like third bounce. Yeah. But it's there. So start out with your ball at the beginning. Line up your contact poses and try to like put them on your ball layer. Try to get them. You can have them start out being evenly spaced. But the distance or like the spacing between each ball boinking the ground will get smaller over time. So just keep that in mind. You might have to make adjustments as you go. So that's part of the reason why I use Blender is because you can move around the keys kind of easily, even though I don't really use Blender that much. So after doing those contact poses, what I did was I did like the top of each arc, because the ball doesn't get it doesn't have any squash and stretch at those moments. So I in between around like so in between your ball would probably be like just a full circle at one of these before you squash it. So between those at the top of its arc, having each of those arcs get shorter and shorter as it loses energy, I put those in between all the contact poses, and then for squashing and stretching, and then after that, sorry. So after doing the contact poses and then the tops of the arcs, so all of your peaks, I did this is all on twos. So 2 frames before and then 2 frames afterwards, I animated the squash and the stretch. So when you're doing the stretch right before the ball impacts the ground, you can convey the most, or you can convey more energy by showing by lengthening the amount of time that the ball is in contact with the ground. So you can see, like, I call the ball being like it's in contact for these frames 10, 12, 14. So for these 4 frames, the ball is touching the ground. But 12 is where I put the like regularly shaped ball initially. if it's touching the ground for longer, it'll look like your ball has more impact. So like the energy will be more apparent the more uh extreme your squash and stretch is, though don't overdo it also. So um rather than having this select for me, please, tab, rather than having it float up here and stretch um early, have it stretch like while touching the ground. Um so it's no stretch, stretch, squash, um, and then stretch again, and then it'll like settle back at the top of its arc. Um, After that, I um after having all the squash and stretch that I needed in there, I did my in-betweens. So um and this is the point wherein I had to move some stuff around after playing back my animation. You'll have, as I said before, with the timing chart, um, when your ball reaches the top of its arc, it's going to be the slowest. So you need to accommodate that by giving it more frames. And if 20 is the top of my peak, I added like at least one keyframe to either side of it. So 2 frames before, an in between there, and another in between there. And there are more breakdowns towards the beginning, like an extra one, because it is slower at the peak and it has the most energy. So yeah, I kept on doing my in-betweens and there were fewer and fewer. This animation is only 3 seconds long, so it's 72 frames. Yours could be probably a smidgen shorter or a little bit longer, depending on how you want it to go. But yeah. Kaylee, do you have any specific questions on like how to get the drawings started? Um, because I think like maneuvering between the two, like moving the shapes around and like creating them might be something to just struggle with. I can hide this layer and make a new one. Were you
Yeah,
able to open it at all?
yeah, I'm on the screen like what you're seeing right now, and I think I made a line and I was doing something, but I didn't understand what I was doing. So then I think I backtracked and I'm kind of just like now I'm just trying to do the stuff where you like add like meshes and circles to it, but I can't really seem to get a bottom horizontal line on it.
Okay, cool. Might just do a new file. New 2D animation, don't save. Cool. So when you start out, it should look like this. The way that you go from drawing your lines and then moving them as objects, that toggle is with tab. So if you hit tab, you can first zoom out first so that you can see what your drawing plane is. You can draw something down. This is making a stroke. So I'm gonna use this line tool because my lines aren't straight. And then I should be able to draw a line from there. You'll see these 2 yellow dots on either side. You hit enter to confirm that that drawing's okay. Those yellow dots were pivot points for you to change your lines angles if you wanted to. And then if I hit tab again, I can select it and then hit this icon to move the line. And if you move it around, it'll create keyframes, which you'll see populate in this bottom timeline. So let me know if you're able to make a line. Have we gotten that far?
Yeah, I'm gonna open a new file now. I'm gonna try to make a new one.
Epic. Wow. I know I said that we would move to voice chat earlier, but I think we're okay if we just stay here. I've changed my mind. Yeah. DW is closed. The same, you would use the same thing if you were trying to make a circle. You would just hit tab again to draw your circle. There's a circle in the menu over here on the left hand side. And then you left mouse click and drag to make your circle. You can use the yellow ones to do your squash and stretch later when you get to that point. And then the red will help you show the center point that it is going to scale your shape from. So you can do that and then hit enter when you like what shape that is.
I figured up to like making the circle, but then when I try to press like the I to keyframe it, it
Mhm.
asks like for what layers, and I'm not really sure what that means or like where it's supposed to show if I'm using more than one layer.
Have you selected under the strokes menu lines? Like when you hit I, it should key everything, but the layer that you're actually drawing on should be lines. If you look at the timeline, like the dope sheet at the bottom of your screen.
Yeah, I'm in lines.
Okay, weird. You could, maybe I had this on and you don't. There's this little menu at the bottom here for, or a button for auto keyframing. Hit that so that it's blue, and then it should automatically place keyframes on whatever layer you're on. But it should be on lines.
Okay, I just won't mess with it then once I make a circle.
Are you able to see that button also?
Yeah, my button for on my side is also blue.
Oh, okay. Oh, weird. Okay. Let me hit I. You had your circle selected like this, and then you
Yeah.
hit I.
Yeah, and it'll be like active layer or all layers. So I'm not sure what it meant by like all layers,
Oh,
like which one to pick.
pick active layer. So it'll
Okay.
only create, well, yeah, it'll only create a
Oh,
keyframe on fills or on lines, as opposed to fills. Fills is like you're filling in the shapes with like a bucket tool, or like you have color.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. But yeah, I would suggest making your contact poses like, I don't know, 12 to 16 frames. I don't know how heavy or what kind of balls y'all are animating. What kind of balls are you guys animating? You can also unmute yourself. I'm probably not gonna look at the chat. Ooh, that's not where I wanted it. Okay, up here.
I went with exceedingly cartoony, so we're gonna see how it goes.
Exceedingly cartoony ball. What kind of, is it like a tennis ball?
I guess I just have like I kind of blended the squash and stretch into smear frames a little bit, because I've never practiced that before, so definitely doesn't look like a real ball, but
That's
I'm having fun with
okay.
it.
You're having fun with it. Well, honestly, I think I'm gonna. And then also the way that you can move keyframes is you you can marquee select them. It's probably not the best way to do it, but you can marquee select them. You can even zoom in. That would be good. I'm gonna restrict my timeline to 72 frames, zoom in so I can see the numbers a little bit better. and then middle mouse, not middle mouse, wrong program. Left mouse, click and drag to move those keyframes around. So yeah, we're kind of just canoodling around. You can like start with a multiple of the first frame contact number and then decrease that by some arbitrary amount and see how that feels. And then fill in from the poses there. 14, 28, maybe 26. I'm gonna try to make a slightly bouncier ball than the one I did. I feel like the one I did was like, I don't know, a slightly bouncier tennis ball, maybe. 26, 14. Is anyone doing the magic dot one also? That one's actually like quite fun if you've ever done it before. And I feel like there are many ways to make the magic dot interesting. Anyone? Nobody? That's okay. Legalize. Oh, forgot to mention, you can in Blender change it so that the onion skinning includes, this will be more helpful later, but somewhere in here there's a way to change it so that the onion skinning has more frames the more that you add to it. Modifier, material, stroke, visibility. This one. Well, it's somewhere in here. I'll figure it out eventually. Or I'll just live with having just a teensy bit of onion skinning. Oof.
Show of hands. Who's making the circles with the circle tool and who's drawing the circles?
Also true. Is anyone actually hand drawing the circles? I prefer the shape tool just to make my life easier. But
I'm drawing the individual circles.
brave. Well, I know you I know you made something for Create-a-Thon. No. You've animated before.
I have, yeah. I mean, my Clip Studio animation subscription bullshit ran out. So wanna know? So I'm animating. I'm going back to animating on Flip Animate.
Wow. Well,
So
it's not like anyone could tell. You're doing great.
thank you. I hope
Yes.
my abilities will show through.
I believe so. All right,
Trying.
Kaylee, how's it going? Oh, Lord's AM2 drawing. Y'all are brave. Ashley, y'all are crazy. Y'all are crazy with the bouncing ball. Wait, I think everyone's just hand drawing it. That's wild. Okay. Well, whoever's watching the recording, you don't have to suffer like that if you don't want to. If this is your first bouncing ball endeavor, I would recommend drawing it with a circle shaped tool, respectfully. Um, is anyone not animating on twos? Out of curiosity.
I don't even know with flip anime. I don't know what you'd call this.
Maybe you're
You can like hold frames for like a fraction of a frame, which
that's
is
kind
kind of
of
cool.
funny.
No, yeah, honestly, I kind of prefer it. Like with Clip Studio, it's like you either hold it for 1, 2, 3, or 4 frames. With this one, you can hold it for like 1.5 frames or something like that.
That's kind of wild.
It's kind of cool. Yeah, maybe Flip Anime is ahead of its time.
Maybe it is. Wait, okay, I messed up. How's it going, Kaylee? Were you able to get some contact poses down?
Yeah, I'm using the tool to make the circles look like so I don't have to draw them, and I'm using like the squash and stretch thing right now, and it's going pretty well.
Let's go. I'm scaling. Wait, are you using a different tool? I'm scaling with X and Y or X, sorry, X and Z. And then I'm rotating it. Um
Did you guys set the FES?
sorry, what was it? There was another question.
Setting the FPS, I forgot to set mine to like 24 or something.
Oh, what did you have it before? 30?
Yeah, that's the was default 30.
Oh, okay. I see. Boop, 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 boop. Did I ask this before? Have y'all animated a bouncing ball before? I like Clip Studio, but I can only do 24 frames in it. I did not know that about Clip Studio. Is it
Yeah,
because
you
it's
have to.
primarily drawing?
The no, with Clip Studio, the standard subscription is Pro, which is like you get the drawing software, but you get like the free trial version animation. But the EX, you have to pay like a monthly fee, and then you get to use the full animation software, which is
Wow.
stupid and annoying. Yeah, I know, right? So like it's either you pay the big giant payment for Clip Studio, or you have the free trial of that, or you pay the big giant fee for Clip Studio, and then you pay your EX monthly afterwards, which is so absurd. The animation is included.
I feel like I remember people complaining about this a good while ago now. I don't know why I hadn't caught wind of it sooner, but that sucks. If you guys want suggestions for 2D software, I am not a huge 2D person. I have dabbled. I've dabbled in several, but there's free stuff out there. Okay. I can copy these over. You can also copy 14, 16. Okay. Let's copy the shape itself and then paste it over on the succeeding frame. Paste and then rotate and then try to make your angles sort of the same. It's hard to tell. Oh man, I remember this happening. the ground line disappearing because I think when you copy and paste that way, it's on a new layer. This is why it's annoying. That's why you have the option to insert keyframes on the active layer only. Copy. Paste. Sure. This would be so much more helpful if I actually had more onion skins, but who cares? Boing. And then with this middle one, I can make it bounce scale. I can squash it. Scale X, scale Z. Whoa. I think you can use oh boy. Shift over a little. Boing. Boing. Eric also drawing by hand? Y'all are kind of cracked. I think everyone except Kaylee and I are drawing it by hand. Y'all are brave. But this is good practice, so good on y'all. Has everyone here already done the bouncing ball? That's okay if you have. This was mostly intended for beginners.
I haven't.
You haven't? First time bouncing ball! Let's go.
Yeah, I think I might have extra time, so I might try to make him like a little guy.
Amazing. You could put a little face on it or make it an interesting color. I don't know.
It's also Eric's first time, and it's Haley's.
Epic. I've done the magic dot, but this is my first time with the ball. Let's go. I don't animate much, I draw more. Understandable. Is there like an aspect of illustration that you're sick and tired of? It's making you want to animate, or vice versa. Like a reason why you prefer one over the other sometimes. Paste frames. I'm so scared to paste. Paste. It's not working. Okay. Copy. Paste. Hmm. I like things to feel more dynamic, I suppose. Word, I get that. Have you ever gotten into like, those edits where people will like rig their own drawings or just like not their drawings, like manga panels or something that like make a character blink? Could get into that potentially. That is also animation. This is I think the most annoying part of the bouncing ball for me is that you have to like align the. Oh no, why is that on a different layer, guys? Why's that on a different, where'd the ground go? Whatever, it's fine. I'll figure it out. That this isn't the mindset you should have when troubleshooting your stuff, but we are pressed for time. Oh, hotkey. Where's the manipulator at? Why is it not? Okay. That's not.
I kind of being lazy with it. I'm just doing the keyframes of where I want the ball to be, the apexes, or like what apexes and minimas. Is that what it's called again?
Huh?
Like
Apex predators and
it's whoa,
what
apexes
is
and
it?
minimas. Like the highest points of
Yeah,
the
like a.
bounces, and like when it hits the ground, I just put them there, and then I
Oh,
just
your
do the in betweens.
extremes.
Yeah, the
Yes.
extremes. Yeah, I just
Paste.
move the ball around. I'm gonna worry about like stretches later, since this is Blender.
I'm not questioning your methods. I'm just going paste. I wonder if I maybe should have stopped recording because now I'm just rambling. But yeah, the ball is not there either. I'm trying to remember how exactly I did this a few days ago and still have the ground line show up. Did I not have a specific layer selected? It's probably because I'm just copying and pasting. But that's literally what I did before. Whatever, it's fine. Okay. Oh, I know what I did. I deleted the points. I deleted the points. Sigh. Why is the bouncing ball going? I see that I should not have deleted the points. Ignore what I said, Kaylee. Don't delete the points. Where did my little guy go? Yeah, if you guys have questions, let me know. I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability. But I don't. Did anyone else's classes get canceled aside from the people who have classes at DW? Or not canceled, but were made online today?
To my knowledge, it was just DW.
Okay. We're special, I guess. Really though? Like none of the other Norman. Well, I guess Norman Hall's fine. Might have just been us.
Yeah, I went by the tree today to check it out, and there were construction teams there, so it was probably just like abundance of caution thing since there are gonna be power tools in the area.
Um, see. Peace. Is there anyone taking animation classes this semester? Out of curiosity, with Carlson and Cantrell. Mm-hmm. Oh, maybe. It's cool if you are. I'm just curious. Oh, the ground line disappearing is so great. I love that. That's so good. Wow. The last two don't have the last questions stretch, so. More frames. Oh, the ground line disappearing is crazy. Oh, yeah. Why is it like that? Oh, you know what? Maybe it's because they're like being read as the same object. They're not, in fact, the same object. What if I cut this, dissolve, and then add a new layer, then put this here. Hello, paste. Did it paste properly? Paste. No, it didn't. This is still blinking like that. I'll just make a new one. Also, time check. You have 20 minutes. I don't know how far you guys are. Maybe you're actually far. And are nearly done. In which case, if you finish before the meeting ends, I'd love to see your bouncing ball. Or balls. Is it not? Okay. Yoink. Is that actually on the EP layer? Enter. And then let's see. There's the line. Then all the lines there. So. This is what happens when you forget to do things right the first time. And you don't separate your layers. Stay. Yay. Yes. Okay. Cool. I'm gonna stop the recording because I've just been quiet this whole time.